Okay, I got a message that says it's being recorded now, so. Elizabeth, does your screen look a little weird?
Yeah, from whatever you're sharing. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay, that's never happened before. Let me go back to the.
Everybody bear with us. This is like the first time we've done this, so we're newbies.
Okay, so I think you can go ahead and start sharing your screen, Elizabeth, and I believe
Okay.
it's. I think we're in good shape.
Okay. Let me figure out how to do that again. Huh.
Yeah, I made you a host, so you should have some power.
Okay.
Um, yeah, you're going to want to share your screen, but not. Um, somehow it's taken over my entire screen. It's not what we practiced yesterday. It appears someone else is sharing their screen. Elizabeth, did you see that?
Yeah, yes. I don't
Okay.
know. Okay.
I think Tom Weebold was sharing his screen for some reason, somehow. I'm not sure how that happened, but okay. He's not doing it anymore. So go ahead and click share my screen
Oh,
and
no, he's Tom, what are you doing?
yes, Tom, you're killing us.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna hit share my screen and share my
There we
desktop,
go.
and I'll pull up uh, the portal. I close these. All right, so can you guys see the portal then? Does that work?
Yep. Okay, so I just want to thank everyone for attending. This is Andrew Miller from the Illinois Natural History Survey. I'm part of the Symbiota Working Group, and we're getting ready to get started here. I think everything's working well now that we've shared the screen. Just a quick ground rules. If you could please mute your microphone unless you want to speak. Um, that would be great. That way we don't pick up any background noise and the recording gets recorded appropriately so everyone can hear it. Feel free to type anything you like in the chat group. We have a couple people monitoring this that will help answer your questions, in addition to Elizabeth answering questions as well as they come up. So if you'll see
All right. First, I'm going to apologize if I talk too fast. You guys can let me know if I do. It tends to be a habit, so I apologize in the beginning. This is just a general walkthrough of the portal. A lot of these features will be gone into more greater depth with some of the other webinars. There's going to be a transcription one and record creation that will break down these tools a little more for you guys. So I'm just going to start the very basic stuff. Some of you, I
Yes.
recognize names, have already been through this training before, so it might sound really boring to you or stuff you already know. And for that, I apologize, but there are some new people here, which it might be useful for. All right, I am going to walk you through, whoops, I lost my screen. Okay, I don't know what happened. Can you guys see that? Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you. So I'm going to walk you through the mycology portal that we have. Everybody's portal looks a little different. We've been working with Symbiota to add a couple new features that might not be on yours just yet. So don't be too panicky about it. I'm already logged in, but basically I'll log out and log back in. Login is up at the upper right, along with new account. New account is where you would go to set up a new account. So if you have students who are going to come in to transcribe, they would go there and they'd create a username and a password and then put in their first name, last name, and their email address. And then you guys, those of you who are administrators, they would have to let you know that they've created an account. And then I will show you later on where you can go to assign permissions for transcribers or maybe fellow admins. I'm going to go ahead and log in. Okay, and then it takes you back to the front page. If you go over to my profile, which is in the upper right where you had logged in, click that, and then go to the tab that says Specimen Management. This will pull up all of your collections within that portal that you are in charge of. A lot of people just have one, but there are a couple collections that have more than one. Illinois, we have two right now. I know people like Purdue also have two. And then you would select the collection you want to go into to manipulate or use the administration controls. Um, and I guess I'll just walk you through most of these individual tools and options down the line. So within the data editor control panel, the first one says add new occurrence record. If you click that, that's going to take you to creating a new occurrence record. These are every little bit of information that you want to fill out that's possible within Symbiota. This is where you can do it and what it looks like. There are other options of creating occurrence records within the portal, such as with skeletal records or just uploading complete files. And I believe Michael Denslow will walk you guys through that next month. And he can break down each of these categories that are within this option. Most of these correspond to a Darwin core term. And if you have any questions about what a term means, there are these lovely little green question marks that you can click, and that will pull up the dictionary within Symbiota that will provide you a pretty decent explanation to help you understand what they are. Again, these correspond to Darwin core terms, so if that is not a good enough explanation for you, you can hit, it'll say see Darwin core terms, and I could go to the catalog number and see what how Darwin core defines that. All right, I'm going to go back now because I'm not going to walk you through that whole tool. All right, we have under here, I've never used create new records using image, but we have add skeletal records, which is a pretty nice way to add skeletal records. Again, Michael can kind of walk you through this. We found it useful here at Illinois for a little while to create skeletal records. You can modify this so that in this display option down here, you get a pull down menu that you can select. So you can decide what information you want to fill out for your skeletal record. Skeletal records, by definition, are the bare minimum of information you can put into an occurrence record so that you can go through it and then it can be transcribed later. Ultimately, all it really needs is a catalog number and possibly a specimen name or a collector name. But you can add more information or take away information as you want. So I could decide I don't want to put in author. I could decide I don't want to put in family or locality security, and then I could hide it, and then I could just fill out this simple information. Over on the right, over here, this is a kind of nice tool. So if you have students who are going to be entering skeletal records and you kind of want to monitor or keep record of how much they are doing, it records how long a session was, how many you've done in a session, and then also includes the rate per hour. So if you have students entering skeletal records, this could be a pretty decent way to help monitor them for your stats and kind of provide them guidance of how well they are doing. I can go back. Oh, yeah, I'll go back. Okay. And then, so edit existing occurrence records, this option right here is basically kind of like our little form of Google to be able to search all of the records within your collection. Has multitude of options. So oftentimes I have people within my project who are trying to locate a certain situational records and they're not quite sure how to do it, and they can email me, and then I can kind of break down what information I need to have filled out in order to find the records that they are looking for. So collector, of course, is the collector's name. Here you can search by the collector's full name. When general users use the front-end search, they can actually only search by the collector's last name. So this is a lot more functional and useful from the back end. Number applies to the collector's number, and then date applies to the date it was collected. The date, I believe, needs to be formatted in year, month, day, but if you enter it in a different way, actually, and this might have changed. Actually, it doesn't. Okay, it's fine. Sometimes you'll get a message that pops up that says the date needs to be formatted in a certain way, and it's nothing to panic over. You can just read how it wants it formatted and format it that way. Catalog number is going to be the catalog number you've assigned to that specimen. Other catalog numbers is the number that you might have put in for an older herbarium number that was on the specimen. So if you have that number, you could search by that. Entered by. So entered by is a way to search for the people within your collection who are entering things, and you search by their username. So my coworker Alex, I could search by his username, which is this, and I could see what new records he's entered in here. There isn't a way to search by an entered. There isn't a way to search a modified by. So if you have students coming in here to transcribe stuff and then you want to be able to pull that up and like pull up a modified by, you won't be able to do that. You can only do the user who initially entered the record into the portal, which is a little unfortunate, but sometimes that's how things work. So date entered is, again, the date that the record was entered into the portal. There are actually some neat manipulation ways of if you're trying to find a range of records within a date. So if I wanted everything after, let's say, October 31st, this would pull up everything past that date with the greater sign. If I were to change the greater sign to a less than sign, I would find dates earlier than October 31st. You can actually also do a range of dates. So if you're looking for everything that was done, let's say within the month of January, year, month, day, and then I put a dash, and then year, month, and then the last day of the month, which I think is 30th, maybe if it's the 31st. And so that would pull up the records that were created within this date range. And that can actually be pretty useful to be able to locate your records if you've known that you uploaded them within a certain range and need to do something with them. So you can't search by a modified by user thing, but you can actually search by the date that it was modified. So if you have student workers who are coming in to transcribe or enter records, to transcribe records, you can, and if they give you a date that they were working on at the time, so say that they emailed you and are like, okay, I'm working on a bunch of records on Monday, whatever, you could go ahead and pull up to see what records are modified on Monday to kind of go ahead and review what had been done. That'll pull up other things that had been modified by other users, but it's still a pretty decent way to review records that have been transcribed. And then there's processing status. So for the microportal, we've been pretty adamant about people assigning processing statuses to the information that they're uploading. So for us, stage 1 is a skeletal record, stage 2 is something that's been transcribed already, and then stage 3, oh, enlarge the type, I can do that, sure. Does that help? Awesome, okay. Hmm. Let me know if I need to go back over anything else because the type was too small. Okay. I wish I'd caught it sooner. Thank you for letting me know, Anne. Okay. So again, processing status. Stage 1, it's a skeletal record. Stage 2 is a record that's been transcribed. Stage 3 is a record that's already been georeferenced. Originally, a lot of people were just uploading files and putting them in as unprocessed. And we've been going through to transcribe a lot of those, and that's a good way to find records to transcribe. But if you've correctly labeled your data as stage 1, you know that's a skeletal record, it needs transcription, you can search your records that way to pull up those records to be transcribed. And the same goes for georeferencing. If you want to georeference something, it should already be at a stage 2, it should be fully transcribed, and that's how you'd be able to pull up those records. Some of the records that we're dealing with have some amazing cursive handwriting and are difficult for a lot of our younger students to read. So I've advised the students here who are unable to decipher them to mark them as expert required. So that kind of takes it out of the queue of stage 1 records for them, and then I can go through, or somebody here who's better skilled at reading really old handwriting can go through and transcribe those instead. And there are some other labels here that you can use as you would like. But again, every project is different, although we would like to start establishing the stages as meaning how we're using them. I'm going to go ahead and use unprocessed to pull up records. And again, you can search for records with images. So if you've uploaded images and they should have matched with your records, you can pull up records that way, or you can search for records without images to double check to see, to make sure that the image is uploaded correctly. There are other ways to do that, like within FileZilla, but you can double check this way. There are custom fields that you can add if this is not enough for you, and sometimes it definitely isn't. And you can add as many custom fields as you would like. This pencil tool will allow you to add additional custom fields. And when you open these up, you get the drop-down menu of almost everything that's within the occurrence record. And so you can search additional records this way, or records additionally this way. It's also Boolean search, so it's really nice if you are looking for certain records that don't have certain fields filled in. You could use is null. If you want something like I have a hard time pulling up our type specimens, and in order to do that, I actually do, let's see, I do, where it's actually at the top, type status, and then I'll do contains, and then I'll do type. Because most of the type specimens have been labeled some form of type, but that kind of wording tends to change depending on what it is. I will clear that out, however, because I don't want to search for that. And then once you've sort of applied all your key search tools, you can load the results. There's also a sort by, which is pretty useful. So if you want to locate stuff that had just been entered, if you've got people entering in records, you could do date entered and then sort it by descending. So that'll give you the newest stuff at the top and go down, and so you could review things that way. So there are 2 ways to pull up the results. There's display editor or display table. Display table, when I hit this, and this might take a little while to load. Oh, is unavailable. It will pull up a table of all the records that meet this. Oh, did I not even display table? Nope. Okay, it's not working for me, but that's okay. It will pull up a table that is basically a database table of all the information filled out for your records meeting those criteria, and you can go through and individually select records from there. If you hit Display Editor, that will pull up the first individual record, so it will pull up the whole occurrence record for the first record within that data set, and you can actually scroll through the whole table from there individually. I think that's about it I have here. Yeah, I'm gonna go back. What else do we use? A batch georeference will be broken down, I think, maybe in the third or fourth month. So I won't go into that there, but that's where you would batch georeference things. We haven't used the loan management stuff. Posted comments is new. I've not seen that actually. Um, uh, all right, so in the administration control panel, there are additional options. Only those of you who are admins of your collection will be able to view this, so your student transcribers do not see this or are able to access this information. If you click Edit Metadata and Contact Information, and you're going to hope that it loads. Did I break the portal? I might have broke the portal. Let me try. So was the portal not working for? Oh, okay, yours broke this morning. No. Andy, what about you? Are you not able to pull up? Not working. Okay.
Hey, Ed,
Fabulous.
can you hear us? Is Ed, I thought Ed might, this is Deb, might pipe up. Hi.
If it's easy. Good time for questions.
This is Ed. I'm looking into it right now. The other portals are working, so it's strange.
Server
And
not
they're all on the
playing.
same server, same database, so it's kind of weird that the micro portal is not working. And it's not working on this end either. I don't know why that wouldn't work, but all the others would.
How many people here in the meeting are
Deb.
trying to log in with their own accounts on the machine right now?
Yeah, I don't think that would be it, though, because I think the other portals would be affected too.
Huh.
I'll continue trying to track it down.
And
do you have rights to
weird.
other
It's
portals?
been fine all day. That's true.
That should have most of the features in it, but
No. Okay. I don't actually. I could go to our Illinois Natural History one. That should work. Yeah, most of it, I think. Let me expand this. So this is, we've implemented Symbiota for our own collections here at the survey, and we're just beginning to upload data because we found that we like it. And I will go back to, let's see, my profile. Am I connected to any? Yeah, I am. I'll pull up, I'm actually not connected to the fungal. Okay. I'll do plant. Okay, so this is our plant collection, and I had just left off at the edit metadata and contact information. So if you click that, it will pull up everything that appears on, let me pull up another tab. Everything that appears on that list that is on the main page or that you can access from the main page that has the collection name and the description and the contact information and then the home page. So this is a way to go in, I know for some of our collections, I just copied and pasted the information, like a paragraph that was on the herbarium website. So if that doesn't meet expectations of the owners of the herbarium, you guys can go in and change these descriptions. Sometimes collections managers change, so you'll want to change that information. You can assign the copyright license here as well, if you would like to. That, of course, is according to your university or your institution. Another way, depending on if you're a snapshot or a live data person, it can be changed in here with this. And I can't show you here, I don't think, but you can also change the icon URL if you need to. But sometimes it's a good thing to go in there to change and update things. This update statistics button, which I won't hit because sometimes it takes forever to load, will refresh all of the collection statistics that appears on your collection page, which is down here, which I've just highlighted. There's one specimen record in here, but that's because I've only put in a test record in here for the collection to show up on the main page. And then, okay, so manage permissions. So as I had said in the beginning, when you've got students that go and create accounts, you want to set them up with permissions so that they can transcribe. So this collection, I'm on it, Andy's on it, we've got a collection manager, our digitizer's on it for some reason. And so in order to find those people, you would go down here to the last box. This is add a user. And this lists people by their last name, first name, and then their username is in parentheses. So if they don't provide you a username, it's not an issue. You'll know most of them by their full name. So if I had wanted to give our friend Phil permission as an admin, I could go ahead and assign him permissions as an admin for this collection. For student transcribers, you're going to want to use editor. So this limits the amount of things that they can mess with on the portal. We'll just give them mostly just permissions to transcribe records. It's sometimes a good idea, depending on how old your project has been, how long your project's been going on, to double check who's listed in here as administrators and editors. I know, so we had the macro project, which is wrapping up and is still going on while we work on the micro project. We have some people from the previous project who are starting this project, and the administrators have changed and a lot of student workers have left. So it's a good thing to go in here and double check to make sure that you don't have administration or editor rights to people who are no longer working on the project. I'm gonna go back. So again, I think Michael Denslow will go through uploading records. There are two different ways to upload, well, three different ways to upload records. You can create complete CSV files with all of the information and upload them. To do that, you would use the import update specimen records. Sometimes you can upload a skeletal file, a CSV skeletal file. But the other ways to do it were to add a new occurrence record, which means you manually fill in that record that's on the portal rather than within a spreadsheet, or you can also within the portal create skeletal records. And depending on your workflow and what you're comfortable with, you can choose any of those options. We've actually, we started at one end and we've completely changed here at Illinois to what we do. We're actually creating CSV files first and then uploading them because it's a lot faster, we found, than manually putting in occurrence records. What else? Processing toolbox. Processing toolbox, I won't walk through this much, but there's some additional options here. If you need to find information about crowdsourcing, if you're going to do We Dig Bio, if you click that, your controls for that are found here. And you'll be able to add records in the queue and see your volunteers and your editors here. Going back, the Darwin Core Archive Publishing. So this is important for iDigBio because they don't get to see your information and have it on their portal until you tell them that it's ready to be seen and not hosted, but shared with them. So you would go here and basically create, refresh your Darwin Core archive, you'll want it to be at a certain level that you're comfortable with for people to, I guess, publicly view and play around with. And so then that will send a signal to the RSS feed and will trigger iDigBio to pull that information and put it up on their portal as well. And then you can actually go on to, I'm at the conference, learned a lot of information about that, but once it's shared on there, you can actually go through and see a lot more information. It'll warn you when it finds dates that seem to be wrong or locations seem to be a little odd. So that's definitely, it offers additional tools that are pretty useful. So it can be, it is good to share it with iDigBio if you're doing that. I will go back. And then there's a review, verify general specimen edits. I don't like this at all. If you select this, it will basically list all of the edits that have been done, and you can sort it based on editor. But I find that it's not a pretty useful way to go through and look at edits. I find that pulling up the records with the edit occurrence record module is a lot better and a lot faster for skimming through. There are data cleaning tools. And so this can search for duplicates based on catalog numbers, because sometimes people have mislabeled stuff or there's typos and you accidentally have used the same catalog number once or twice. And this will go ahead and search for duplicates on there. And then from there, I can't show you on this because we only have one record in here. You can decide, it will pull up and it will link or kind of cluster the two of them together, and you can decide which one is the more dominant record, is the correct record, and you can select that one and decide to, to merge the two records together, which is a nice way to clean up your data sometimes. And then the last option here is your download backup data file. I won't select this because this can take a while sometimes to download, but this is really important because most of your portals don't have a backup plan most of the time, and so each collection is going to want to go in and download this data. How often depends on how much data you put in there, maybe once a month, maybe every week, I don't know. And downloading that provides you a zip file of that contains a CSV that has all of your occurrence data. It provides you a CSV that has the links of your images. It doesn't provide you the images themselves, but where they're located on the iDigBio server, so you could locate those. And then I believe also a metadata file that is not super, we're more into the occurrence records and the image location. That's also useful for if you put information, you put your records in here and want to transcribe them or edit them and then download that information so that you can put it back into your own personal database. You can do it this way. I've not completed, I've not followed it out that far, but it should, that would be the way that you download your data in order to import it back into your original database that you have.
Data cleaning tool.
That's everything here.
I just put in some bad data yesterday.
I want to see, is the Michael portal back up?
So duplicate catalog numbers, it'll pull up those.
I can't show
records,
you, I don't think it's here.
Of which 4, duplicates.
Yeah. Do we have some? Andy. Yeah. Okay. So you can tell from here, you can evaluate the data and see that they're basically all of the same thing. The information doesn't vary. Sometimes the information does vary, like maybe the scientific name is the same thing for the same specimen, but one's an older form. But you can go in here, I could decide that I want this top record to stay, so I would select that, select the 2 records, and then I would hit merge duplicate records, and it would merge them together. I'm not 100% sure how, but that's how that works. I don't think I can show you, so a really cool thing that we did with the micro project is that Andy had then go in here and create us a statistics page, which we don't have on our personal one yet. But it's pretty neat because you can go to the statistics page. You can select which collections you would like to view. So if you want to compare yourself to see how another institution is doing, if you're, have a rivalry with somebody else in the project, you can select those, or you can select them all and then hit another button. I can't show you, but it will actually pull up a table that will list the collection name and then break down your statistics by month. So it will list your unprocessed, it will list your stage 1s, how many are stage 2, how many are 3, as well as how many images you've uploaded. So we've been using that to monitor the project as it goes along and kind of nudge people if they need nudging as the project goes. Oh, thanks, Ed. So Cernex should have it. I'll pick the first. We'll just do all of Arkansas. I'll hit run stats. Oh, I don't think I can view the table unless I'm logged in and I don't have permissions. But there would be another button here that you would hit after this loads, and it would load and break it down by month for you guys. And that's everything that I have for you. I guess you guys can start asking questions. I know some of you have already put questions in here. I'll kind of skim through. You can also turn on your mics if asking is easier that way. Let's see. Elena, I've not worked with loan management yet. I know that a lot of people are not happy with it yet. I know that it's not where they want it to be. Perhaps I think Ed could answer questions on that. And then Brad, you asked why is a CSV faster? We found that it's easier to just be able to tab over to cells and enter stuff in. You can also copy data down. So oftentimes as we're going through to add records, they might all be from the same state or the same county. And so instead of typing in Illinois every time, it's just easier to copy the information down. And you're right, it's basically an Excel sheet.
Could I ask a question? When you were searching for the duplicate entries, do you have to, I'm confused about how to do that. Can you make multiple, there are several pairs listed, in your example there were 8 pairs listed. Could you deal with all 8 pairs at once, or do you just have to deal with one pair enter, one pair enter?
Go for it. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Let me pull that up again. Was that data cleaning tools? Yeah. Yeah, so each of these you can tell, so they're sectioned out. I don't know if you're able to see with the screen sharing, but there's like a darker gray and a lighter gray.
That round radio
sometimes you'll have
button,
more than 2
that's
records
the one
that
you
have the
want
same
to be
catalog
dominant,
number. Sometimes there might be 3 or 4
and then
by
the
accident.
square radio button.
And you would be able
Like,
to
for
handle
instance,
all
if
of
you just
those.
wanted
And
to
also, so
merge
there
all of them
are
to the
4
one that
records
are
here,
clicked for the round
initially
radio
4
button, you would just
specimens here
click
that are all
the
the same.
square,
And I
they
could
merge.
decide which ones I want to keep and merge all of them here at one time. Yeah, I wouldn't have to go through individually to merge them. So sometimes, go ahead.
If you click the top square, it'll select all the squares.
Mm-hmm.
It'll do all the check marks.
Correct.
And then you'll just end up with 4 records then?
Yep.
Okay.
And when it merges, what
so.
happens is if there's a value in one
I've
record
not fooled
and
around
not
a
in the
lot
other
with this
record,
stuff.
it
Again,
will
Ed might
transfer
be
that
able to
value
answer
into the
better,
empty field.
but I believe that's how it works.
However, both records have values in a field
Yeah,
and they're different,
right there.
then you want to make sure to pick
So-
which one you want to be dominant.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
if you have
correct.
a situation
So
where
if I-
both
yeah.
the records, you want information from for some fields in one record and some fields in another record, then you have to resolve it, and you can't really use this tool.
Okay. You can open up the records by selecting the ID number here to the left. So if you wanted to pull up the record
there
and
was
make
one
changes to
question.
them before you merge them, you could go
There
ahead
was
and do
one
that
question
if there
about-
was a bunch of different
Sorry, go
data
on.
that wasn't
Sorry.
didn't match up, like there wasn't a
I guess
dominant
I was
record
just
that you were
confused
happy
because
with.
there's no words above those columns, like what the square one is and what the round radio button is. Like it, I don't know if there's like just an easy header you can
Is there
put
any
on
more
those to make
questions?
it more obvious what those do. We were just scared. We were just scared to use it because we didn't know what those were.
hmm
Well, above the table it says
That's
use
a good point.
checkboxes to select records you would like to merge and radio buttons to select which target records to merge.
I think that's a good point, and maybe
that-
someone
Well,
could
and I
talk to
guess-
Ed or
I
Ben
mean, I might
to
consider a
possibly adding
round
headers to
one,
those, because
check,
I also,
I guess-
until I poked
I guess
around with
they are-
this, was
they are
also
different,
afraid
but-
of it because I couldn't. I was
Is
trained
it
on
that
it
not everyone
by
knows what
them,
a
but
checkbox and
after a
radio
while you
button
kind of
is? Is
forget
that
if you don't
like,
use it. So when I'd gone in
web
here, I was
design
like, I
talk?
don't really know, but
We
I think
do
this is
that.
how it works.
It
Cross
might
your
be
fingers.
merging on it.
Yes, yes, Ed.
All right,
That
good point.
Ed,
Okay.
that is so for everybody here
Yeah.
that doesn't know. You want to tell them?
The reading is
Tell
hard,
them now,
Ed.
because it's a good point. The difference between a box and a circle and what it means.
Yeah, it's just they have different functions. So a checkbox, you could check it on and off, and if you have multiple checkboxes, you could all mark them independently. If you have a radio button, which is the round circle, when you select one within a group, the other one unchecks. So you can only select one at a time. But I mean, that's what we call them within web designing. And sometimes when programmers we think these terms are common terms, and then people tell us, hey, so it's good to have that input if we put things up there and it doesn't make sense. So. There was another question about duplicate catalog numbers. And so if you're managing your data within the portal, so you have a live collection within there, it actually won't allow you to enter in duplicate catalog numbers. However, what happens, what some collections in here, we call them snapshot collections, and that's where they're managing it in another tool. And then they upload the tool, upload their data into the portal. And that's where the duplicate catalog numbers appear sometimes. And in the upload module, it says that there's duplicate catalog numbers there, and they need to be cleaned, but they don't always get cleaned out. And the reason why we allow people to upload is because if you're actually if you're managing your data locally in your own database, or you're using the portal to coordinate images and enter new records in the portal and walk them down, having those duplicate catalog numbers can really mess up how images are linked and so forth. So we want people to actually know that they're there and clean them up and resolve it before they start dealing with images, or hopefully before they do the next reload.
Okay, and then Robin had a question about how the web interface works with the individual collection databases, so how do changes in the Symbiota get changed in the different databases. So Symbiota, from what I understand, is open source, so we here, our bioinformatician is playing around with the Symbiota software to customize it for Illinois collections, and a lot of these, so like say we put in the statistics on our Michael portal, and I don't think that might have been carried over to all collections, but behind the scenes, Ben or Ed are actually able to turn on certain options for the different collections, and so they're kind of in charge of the ones for the NSF grants, and we've got somebody here who knows his stuff and is manipulating the Symbiota backend here.
So the
And
was
then,
Robin
John, you had a
asking
question
about
about uploading
situations where
uploading records.
the
Yeah, I
barium
believe
or
you
Barrier will have a
should, when you
local database
geolocate,
and
it
then they
should
post
set the
a
status to
snapshot of their
stage
data
2.
up
I
on
think
the
initially it
portal.
wasn't, and then I had Ben go in and change that. So once it's been georeferenced, it should say stage 3, sorry.
So if that is the case, what happens is
Scott
collections
says
can
the
actually
Michael portal's
manage the
back up.
data directly
Oh,
within
and
the
it is.
portal, and the portal is a live
It
database.
happened anytime it wanted, just not in the middle of it. That's all right. She
And then-
recovered nicely, and we got. Yeah, it could be possible.
If you have Elizabeth, if you right click, you could actually mute him. Right click on his name.
Down.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for doing whatever you did.
I don't have.
Oh, okay.
As a presenter, I can't do it. Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
Elizabeth, if you bump me like up, I can mute Andy in the meanwhile, so we can stop hearing him. You can do it, I think.
Andy,
You
we
just
can
click on
hear
his
you.
microphone. There you go. But then you need to let him know, because he'd be like, "What?" It's just an emergency.
Can I? I don't
Sorry.
have the full options up.
Easy there, Elizabeth.
Oh, I have to stop sharing in order to get to that.
Sorry, Phil was just telling me the micro portal is back up.
Yes. Yes. Oh, wait. Can I?
No. So I was just gonna.
Oh,
So
wait,
I was
I got
saying
it.
that some
Oh,
collections are live,
is
and
exciting. This
in
is
those
great.
cases they
I
manage
wish I could do
data
this all the
directly within the
time.
portal. Other collections are called snapshots, so they manage their data within a local
Right.
system, whether it's Specify or Homegrown Database or KMU
Well, if you weren't
whichever.
talking in the middle of a meeting.
And then they push up a snapshot of
Right.
their
Ed,
data up to the portal.
Okay.
Now that snapshot data can
Ed, did you
still be
finish
edited,
explaining what you were talking about?
but how you walk that back down to
Okay.
your local database really depends on you. If you go to that review page, the one that Elizabeth said she doesn't like, it is useful in the aspect of actually downloading the edits. And you could download it as a data file or a report. And then you could give the report or the data file to your data editing folks. And they could make the changes in the local database. But since the local databases are so many different structures and so forth, it's really up to them to figure out a workflow that works for them. And there are some collections that actually use the download, the data download, and then they just write a script that will walk it back up into their local database. Yeah, so then you have to actually select which records you want to download, and you can actually filter by who edited it. And a little more about there's statuses there. There's open status, pending, and closed. And then there's applied status or not applied. So within your collection metadata page where you set up your name and your code and contact information, there's a field there that says allow public edit. If you do that, folks that have an account that don't have explicit editing rights to your collection can actually make the edit, but they don't get applied in the live data. They get actually thrown into this table, and they're given a not applied status. And then and the editor gets a message saying, thank you for submitting the edits. We'll review them and activate them shortly. So if you do have that, you should come here every once in a while and at least search and see if there's any applied records with non-applied status. Yep. Yeah,
I've found
I agree.
that
There
one of the
are
reasons,
better
like
ways
I've
to
said, I don't like
review.
this. Like this is
If you do it
definitely
in a
good for
table,
that.
like
But
of your data
I've
entry
trained
folks,
people
and
who become
within
very
your
confused by the review status, and they
management
feel like it's an
menu,
additional
there's a thing
step,
called
an additional terms that they have a hard
was it
time
processing toolbox.
understanding. So I've kind of told
And
them
from
that
there,
they
there's a
can
reports
for
tab,
that
and there
for
you can actually see
the mission
who made
of
edits for what
reviewing
status,
transcriptions from students to skip
based
this
on username, and there
if
you
they
could
would
open
like.
up it in a table view.
But again, like,
And it's a little more
go ahead.
useful to actually review. But this other review review page that you're at before, you know, that kind of has a different purpose in my mind, and that's more. I don't think it's more for managing data entry folks. It's more of like downloading edits and transferring edits, and if you want to use that, so some people like one and other people like the other. If you use the other one, you need to go there at least once a week, and then change all the edits from open to closed, and then the next time you go, you're not going to see those edits again, unless you ask for them. I don't know if that makes sense, but. So is that like the old edits? Is that what you're asking for? The old edits?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So
maybe not other people.
if you're in the data,
What I was asking about is the
And then
prior
Deb
screen
asked if
where we
the
were
old
looking
value
at
is
old
sometimes
value, new
provided.
value.
I don't know
Yeah,
if it is for
from
that
the-
end, but I know that if you go into the record,
so
you can
in that
review,
that
if
other
you're
report where
administrator,
you
you
see
can
new
review the
value,
edits
old
that have been
value,
made
you
for
also have
individual
controls
records,
there
and it
where
will
you
give
can
you the
actually
old value and then
reverse
what
the
the
edit.
student
So
or
you could
transcriber
toggle
put
it
in.
back and forth. So if someone did a bunch of edits and you don't like it, you can actually reverse them in batch. And
I think
so when you download in the report,
is what
yeah,
she's
all
asking.
that information is, I'm pretty sure all that information is provided, the old value and the new value. And then also just to actually point out with a data editing form, if you want to see previous edits, so an edit history, if you click on the admin tab, and it lists all the edits, the dates, who made it, and so forth. And then the public display of the specimen record, it will give you a tab that says edit history only if you have explicit rights for that collection to see that information. Not yet. Not yet, actually. So you could hide the locality information, but you can't hide the full record.
And then Beth asked about hiding records from public search.
Well, we've been talking about
there's a
adding
way
that
to set
functionality, but the thing is we've always
records in
been
here
a
so
little
that
hesitant because the
they
main
cannot
thing
be
about the portal
viewed.
is to
The
make,
locality cannot be viewed because sometimes
data
the
available.
locality information
And,
is valuable. If
however,
that's what you're asking, I think there's also a way
I
to
guess,
set it so that
reasons
the
where,
whole record cannot be viewed
you know,
by the
now
public.
that there's a number of people using the portal
Which
to
I
manage
think
their data,
is
there are reasons where you might want to hide the whole record and still make it available.
Okay.
So I think we're going to add that functionality where you could hide
I thought
the
I had
whole
seen
record.
that somewhere, but maybe not. Okay.
Well, if we add it where you could hide it, you could actually go in and batch change those so you can't. But in general, if they're in progress, you know, if the fields aren't entered, you know, they're not going to pop up very often because the fields, there's not much to search on.
She's asking about whether or not the records are like filled out and georeferenced and transcribed. Maybe they don't want to see the records, want the public to see the records in progress.
People figure out that it's in progress. And the thing is, you know, the image of the record's available, so at least people can actually view the image of the label and read the data. So it's useful to have it out there.
Yeah, the only problem with that is if it's an image of a rare species that you want blocked and you don't have the name there to have it blocked.
That's true.
But then it would be really hard to find. So
Also, if
That's
you're
true.
actually loading skeletal data, so let's say you're loading names, but it's a species that's protected by state only, and it's not in a global protection list, and you don't have the state in there, it's not going to get blocked. So that's something to consider too. But another note: if something's rare, marked as rare, the locality is hidden, but also the whole image is hidden too. Just because you can read the label and figure out where it is.
Okay.
Ed, I have
Any more questions?
Elizabeth, I have a question. Well, I have one. I was guessing. So I see this interest in whether or not the record is complete or not, and we could talk a long time for about what means complete. So I was wondering if you or Ed or Andy can lend any insights into your thoughts about when records should be shared, keeping in mind that they
Right.
can
Are
be shared
there
multiple
any
times.
more
So you
final
could share
questions?
them
Oh,
after you were
go ahead.
through getting everything
Okay, go.
skeletal, and then once they were at the next stage, you could share the data again, keeping in mind that in the various portals it would instantly update inside the portal, and then it would come to IDIG Bio as a new version of that data set, and we would version it and take it the way it is. So again, continually increasing discovery of data. So I was wondering what y'all's thoughts are on that. Beth, for example, do you think that you're only going to share after every record is complete, or what are your all's plans for that?
I turned my mic back on, so I'll go ahead and try to answer that just from our perspective of the mycology collections portal, Deb. And basically, we've defined stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 in that stage 1 is kind of a skeletal record with genus, species, and barcode, which I'm not for sure how useful that really is, for anyone. And then stage 2, which is what we'll be talking about through these webinars, the different stages. Stage 2 is when you transcribe that data and actually fill it out with everything except for the geocoordinates. And then finally, stage 3 is what we call a complete record because it has everything in it with locality data, including geocoordinates. It's after it's got georeference. And I guess that's what I feel is really our main goal, is to get to that point and get all the records in a stage 3 record. I know the different portals define those a little differently, and the Symbiota Working Group is going to be talking at our next meeting about how we have a common language and a common nomenclature for what we mean by some of these Symbiota type terms. So that's what works for us so far.
So this is Ed. Personally, I think it's valuable to get the record up there as early as possible along the process. Let's say you load the image and you load skeletal information, just the scientific name. Well, if you have a taxonomic expert that's working on that group, they at least know that record's there. And they might even come and say, hey, I'll volunteer to digitize all the specimens because I want that data available for my research. Or they might find a student to do that, or money. And so I think it's of a value to get up there as soon as possible.
So I would jump. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Sorry. Well, I think it's just something to keep in mind that sometimes the workflow,
no, I'm just going to
the
say
question
that was
would
a good
be,
idea, Ed. I hadn't heard a good, I don't know,
if it's a
justification for
skeletal
putting up
record,
a skeletal
Andy asked,
record,
like, what's the
but I feel like
value,
that's
which
pretty
Ed
good. I know
provided
that
you with
I've
one
not bugged
example.
anybody on our team yet
Another would
for
be,
uploading
what's
data
my
because we're just
workflow? So
starting
like
to
if
get
I
into
send
the
you
groove of
a
things.
record and
But I
it's
know Joanna
incomplete,
at iDigBio
what am I going to
has
do?
been pressing
Well,
us
yeah, you're going to fill it out. You're going to
refresh
get your
and
data to the next
send you
stage,
guys
and then you're going
data.
to send another data set, which is the value of having that RSS feed that you explained so nicely, where once you update the data set, it's automatically gets ingested. And poor or incomplete data. Yeah. So again, Tom, going back to your question, if they can't be georeferenced, do they get? Yeah, that's a good question. Do you guys mark in Symbiota anyway a record that literally, like, really can't be georeferenced, just doesn't have enough data to make a decent georeference? Is that kind of what you're asking, Tom?
I guess if you have county data, only county data, you would just have a mark in the middle of the county. And if you only have state data, I guess you have a map or a mark in the middle of that state. I'm not for sure what happens in a country. I guess the mark goes in the middle of a country, but I'm thinking at least all records should at least be identified to locality for a country. So I'm not for sure there's something that couldn't be georeferenced.
I think people have different philosophies, but what I've done when I was in the herbarium is if it was actually, if you couldn't do it to county or below, or if you couldn't do it below county, we actually left the coordinates blank. And you can actually georeference with a shapefile. There is a field for that, but then there's metadata. There's fields like georeferencing status, so you could put there that it can't be georeferenced or it's not worth georeferencing. But there are different philosophies, so I don't know if there's a set rule.
Well, I was going to clarify, too, if you're using the georeferencing remarks fields, as you pointed out, Ed, this is a place where, Tom, where you could note georeference to county centroid or georeference to state centroid, or, but keep in mind, records like that, once the county's been filled in, or the state has been filled in, or the country has been filled in, and that's all the information there is, they don't technically need to be georeferenced. I mean by a human. A human doesn't need to look at them and technically imply that, or point on something that would apply the centroid. All that you need to do there is have somebody like Ed is giving you a script and say, where the locality is empty because there isn't any to put in there. You can grab up the county values and provide a centroid automatically for all of those. Yeah, but I mean, so again, protocol. What are you going to do when you get to a record like that? How are you going to mark it? And then what are you going to decide? And to some degree, that's policy, how you're going to handle those cases.
Make sure whatever you do, enter an error and meters field. So if you do it to the state, then your error would be, I don't know, 1 million, million meters or whatever. I guess that'd be way too much. Never mind.
So if I understand your question, Beth, you've got records already in your portal and didn't add a processing status. I didn't show you, but I can show you now. Edit existing occurrence records. So if you go into this tool, and then if I were going to pull up everything that's unprocessed and display that table, and I knew that they were skeletal records, there's a way that you can actually batch change a field in here. It can be a little risky because you're changing a lot of data and you cannot undo it. But once you've got the table up here, there is this pencil tool. And then you can select the field name that you would like to change. And if you go down to processing status, and I've actually had to do this a couple times because I forgot to include the processing status in the CSV file. You can type in what the current value is. So if the current value is unprocessed, I type that in.
And if there's no
and then you
value
have a
in there, I
drop-down
think you could
menu
just
of your
select no value.
choices. So
the
again, you're
pull-down
going to
when you
want
do
to make
your
sure that
search,
your
there's
search
no
is
value.
as
And then
refined
you
as
leave
possible
the
to make
old
sure that you
value
have
blank, and you get
the
to edit
records
something.
listed in this
Pretty
table
sure
that
that
you
works.
want to change
And
and
then
not
the
anything
other thing is
outside of
this
that.
is only available to
And then
admin,
you
so
could go in
regular
here,
data entry
match the whole
permissions, folks
field,
with
and then
regular
batch
data entry
update the
permissions
field. And
can't
that
really
would
batch edit
change that column
for
that
good reason.
says processing status to maybe stage 1 or whatever that it is. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes. Yeah. So to change it, if you're going in, say you put in stage 1, and then you go into transcribe. I actually didn't show this, but I guess I didn't walk you guys through this because Julianne Smith should when she does transcription. When you're going through to transcribe, there's a status auto set, and you can set it as stage 2 because all the records you do should be stage 2. And so once you've entered in new data, you'd be able to save the edits, and then this auto set status will carry over to the next record. So once you hit save edits, it refreshes this page, and then you can go back to the top and go to the next record. And that's how the change would take hold. And I believe that when you go into the batch georeference, it will also change the status for you as well. Elena, I've not dealt super much with a place that is actually different regions. So what we're trying to do is we know that we are transcribing, we're not really translating. So we're trying to put the information as it appears on the label into here. The only difference that I've been doing, if I do know, the example that I give everybody is that with the Mexicali that I've worked on, it'll say it was in Bohemia. Well, Bohemia is no longer a country. It's still a region within the Czech Republic. So I used the updated name and used Czech Republic and then put Bohemia in the province. Your question about it being a region within 3 different countries is a particularly curious one, and I don't think I have a answer for that, and I apologize. But maybe somebody else has some ideas. And Brad, I know you've asked twice about you've got a duplicate catalog number that has some sort of weird catalog number, and I don't have any idea how that happened. It looks like it was a number too long I have to know what your process is for inputting data. You might have to track those down to the power and figure out what went wrong. It's possible you had a wrong number in a wrong field somewhere. Like maybe you had that number in the catalog field,
either the column or the
number
format
field,
of the number.
I don't know.
Something.
Yeah. Mhm. It's, yeah. It's, yeah. I've come across some, so with the CSVs, those have been downloaded from a database and handed off to me to clean to put in here, I've noticed that sometimes, for some reason, either maybe it was an error with the download or maybe the records were initially put into the database wrong, but I will have fields in the wrong fields. So it's possible that,
So
yeah,
I see
there
an
was some sort
example
of
that we can
weird
all look at.
mishap.
If you guys,
Like you
if I
said,
put
maybe
that
it
in
was
there,
it was data too long that wasn't supposed to be there. It was supposed to belong to a different
you
field,
can see.
and then it was inappropriately uploaded or something. Okay.
D2CB.
Oh.
Sorry, Brad. Yes, so
And it
Scott
looks like
pipes up, and
they're.
this is the kind of thing, getting from Excel
Oh.
as a spreadsheet to exporting the data into what's called CSV format. Yeah, something happened. So, well, anyway, it can be fixed because all the nice Richard Hannon numbers are there with the collector's, with the collector's number and name, so those can figure those catalog numbers out. But, but there's a hint. So you see the numbers that are not truncated when you go down about 10 records or so? Yeah, they're fine. So, yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 records. 6, and then there's a few more down there at the bottom. Yeah. Aha.
Mm-hmm. These guys. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as Ed was saying, there's an import issue. So Ed, how easy is that to update if he can take the spreadsheet that he used for upload and match the data, like the collector name and the collector number and the date against a correct
Well, you could
catalog number and update it? How does he fix this?
I was gonna say that you could import and say match on catalog number, but it won't work. Another way you could do it is, don't you guys have
Match on collector number?
well, you can match on other catalog numbers. Don't you guys have an other catalog number field? As long as that's not duplicate, that's another option. Make sure, though, that when you export and you change it and fix it and you re-import, it's going to replace all the records. So make sure that, like, Excel doesn't mess with the date or whatever or so forth. Or it doesn't automatically assume that all
Yeah, they have a second.
all lat longs are monetary.
They have a secondary catalog number. This E. No worries. I think there's a delay on my end too, Ed. I think it's just, yeah. There is a secondary catalog number, is what I was saying, for everybody. So they can actually go back in and re-upload and say match on secondary catalog number. And it will overwrite?
I think I would just, what I would do, and let me know if you think this sounds okay, I would just search for all the records that have that number, delete all of those with a batch, like find and replace with nothing, and then I would just upload a skeletal data, which is what we're doing anyways, that just has the other catalog number and the catalog number. And then I would just say merge records after I did that, because they would match and be duplicate catalog numbers or other catalog numbers at that point. And then it would only have that field to update, which would be blank. So it should be pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Crickets.
No, I think that's for Elizabeth, Ed, or I think that's waiting for you guys to say. Does that workflow sound like it will work? Ed, I think they're waiting for your blessing.
The workflow that Brad just talked about.
Sorry to air your dirty laundry again, Brad, but there's nothing like getting help from the source when it's around, right?
So can folks hear me? What I recommend is actually do the upload, and so the upload is a two-step process. So you upload it and it goes in a temporary table, and then there's a you could actually view what you uploaded and even download it. So view and download and make sure that the data looks good, and then if it does, then activate. You know, you could push the final button and transfer it over to the main table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, you could always contact me. It's part of the CERNET task. Or actually contact Eric and then me to go through the proper channels.
I have a quick question, and we don't have to necessarily cover the answer here, but is it possible to link your observations? So if you have observations activated for your account, and they're just personal observations, not going into the collection
All
yet,
right. Are there any
can
more
you link
questions?
those
I keep asking,
observations
but things
to
keep
a
popping up.
species list for a park or something, so that if you type in an observation for a species that's not on the species list, that species list will automatically be updated?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's some tutorials out there about lists. So you could actually, you have a checklist, and then there's tools, a whole bunch of tools in there that help you link occurrences or observations to that list. And then it won't update automatically, but there is a tab that says look for
I
conflict.
don't know about that. Ed
And
might
that's
be
where
better
the
to answer that. I've
voucher
not
is
played
in
around with
conflict with your name.
lists at all,
And we've talked about
or
adding it
individuals.
where you could actually batch change everything. But you know, ideally, if you're linking this stuff, it's good to go and look at the specimen or make sure it was annotated correctly, verify you trust the annotator, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why it doesn't do it automatically.
That's one thing that I'd like to see, or like put a vote in for the last one in this series is running kind of like floristic projects with students to have them enter their observations and push them to a list for an area. And if you know, if two different people are working on the same area, how they both push to the same list and kind of, and then transferring those observations over to actual voucher collections once that project is done.
Okay.
I'd be happy to give that one. But until that's done, check out, I'm going to actually paste in comments a tutorial, because I did a tutorial about this a little while ago. And
okay, I'm writing that down as a
Conducting
possible for the
Field
last
Inventory
one.
Research
That's something
within
I
the
hadn't thought of
Symbiota
before.
portal.
That's a good idea.
And the URL to that mini tutorials. And there's actually 2 mini tutorials there. One is from the checklist or the field researcher perspective, and the other one is from the collection manager perspective. Yes, those are the ones. And I think in the general help within Symbiota, there's some other tutorials there that talk about that too. But I think the conducting field inventory is probably more useful. It's more up to date, I should say. Thanks, Elizabeth. You did a great job.
Any more comments or questions? Thank you. Thanks everybody for attending and interacting and asking questions. It's always really good to have people interacting with you. I hope it was helpful for people. And there should be one of these every month for the next couple months. I think the next one is on record creation by Michael Denzo, and the one after that is transcription. There's one on georeferencing, and there might be another one, I don't remember. Oh, crowdsourcing, and then an optional